kind of jumping into some of the pieces of my show, the first piece I want to talk about is Coalescence, which is merging both ceramic and glass. I was really obsessed with trying to make the two look like the same, because if you know anything about the process of glass making or ceramic making, they're both using the raw materials of the earth forged through fire, but they have vastly different processes to be able to make them. And even though they still have like similar qualities, like so Coalescence, she is porcelain on the top half, covered in a clear glaze, which is glass, and then the bottom half is actually a blown mold glass, which is like an ivory color. So both processes to make each totally different, and yet they kind of can read as one. So with these guys, I was kind of let go of the idea of trying to make the material look the same. The dress part you'd always think is like supposed to be really heavy and solid, and yet it's ironic that the bodies are actually the solid ceramic, and the glass, which is like the dress, is actually kind of more ethereal and like lighter. Hypnagogia is the stage of sleep, the first stage of sleep, right before you're about to actually fall into sleep. It's stage one. If you've ever learned about like sleep patterns, your brain waves go in different waves depending on like what stage of sleep you're in, and hypnagogia is the first wave, so you have very slow, elongated brain waves. So in hypnagogia, the patterns of her dress kind of mimic that same wave pattern of the same brain waves that you go in, and a lot of her is this sense of almost. So she's almost touching her face, her hands are almost touching each other, her eyes are almost shut. So it's this almostness of like falling asleep, which can kind of be like the most frustrating part about insomnia, is like, I think I'm sleeping, I'm about to fall there, but then no, you get shocked awake. Illucidity, totally a made up word, but still has to do with the same kind of concept of being lost in a daydream. So you're not fully lucid, you're not really there, you're just kind of like, I'm kind of in a daydream, I'm lost in my thoughts. Her eyes are kind of open, but she's staring off into nothingness, and then her hand also is posed where it's like she's almost about to fall herself, like to catch herself from falling. Vacillation is to waver in mind, will, or feeling. So I kind of think about it as like having your heart torn two ways, because vacillation and vascular, they're very similar. So she has this internal core of glass that's kind of separating kind of like a heart, or like the vascular system. A lot of my work, I don't have a thought and then I make work about it. A lot of it just happens naturally. I'll make the piece and then I kind of think about like, what should I title it, or what's the concept with it, and a lot of it just kind of coincides with a lot of the things that I'm dealing with at the time. So it's kind of a coping mechanism for what stressors in my life that I'm dealing with. So vacillation was like a torn of heart, like you can't make up your mind, and I made a piece that was, you know, your heart is torn. I definitely have had a lot of sleep issues before. Definitely suffer from insomnia, and I think throughout my whole life I've kind of realized that it's getting worse. And I don't have like a hatred towards it, or I'm not terribly stressed out about it. If anything, I think it's very fascinating because of like how is my brain responding to these external factors. So especially during the time of COVID, and insomnia was a big issue. You know, these figures that are very relaxed, trying to find comfort, they're trying to sleep, and the glass that's coming up, billowing around them, it looks like they're sinking into like a big soft cushion. But it's ironic because the glass is actually really cold, it's hard, it's stiff. The glass that I'm making, they have these different chambers inside of them, so it's kind of referencing the different chambers of your mind that you might be going through when you're dealing with insomnia. Is like you're trying to process all these different thoughts that you're having, so there's different chambers that you're trying to focus on. And so the whole series was just me kind of making different forms, symbolizing the tossing and turning of like, maybe this position will make me fall asleep, maybe this position will make me fall asleep. So ether is actually a medieval science terminology way back when they were thinking about like the material that fills the universe, which I think it was like the light that could travel in a vacuum. So I make a lot of these bubbly pieces in glass. One, because it's so effervescent. It's so like overwhelming, bubbly, which I think has a lot to do with the mind, because sometimes you can have these emotions and you don't know how to actually like process them. It just is the feeling. The feeling mentally when you're embracing somebody, it goes beyond just two physical bodies together. It has more of like this kind of bubbly effect in your mind. My concepts don't emerge until I have to title the piece. You know, it's at the end, and almost like that's like the best part of it, because I'm working so naturally, not trying to stress myself out about like answering a prompt or like what do I want to tell people about this work. I'm just making for my own enjoyment, and then the themes arise of like based off of like what I've actually been dealing with. So it's kind of a way of processing, you know, like my dealing with insomnia. Like I wasn't trying to be like, wow, I'm suffering insomnia, I should make work about this. I'm making a piece, I'm also suffering from insomnia. When they like it kind of emerges from it, which I think is a really awesome, like, I don't know, like discovery of my own pieces. And it's a lot more relaxed than me trying to like stress myself out by like trying to get this message across. So it just comes very naturally, which is fun.